Welcome back to Conservative Cat, the show where we never back down from faith, facts, or fight for freedom. Right here in the heart of Illinois, we've got so much to get to today. I will get to my guest star, William Holditch. He's the author of Strategic Planning for the Golden Years. We're going to visit with him a little bit later, and I am going to get into this Second Amendment. It's been under fire for a long time here in the state of Illinois. Illinois' assault weapons ban on trial. We're going to be taking a look at that. Plus, Pritzker gave some dad advice at a graduation speech at this, well, it's a commencement address. And he took some jabs at Elon Musk and the Trump administration. So we're going to get to that. And then, of course, ABC. You don't hate the mainstream media enough. I'm glad that you're here. I know you have options, but you don't hate the mainstream media enough. They are the enemy of the people. The mainstream media, your alphabet media, ABC, CNN, mainstream legacy media, they are the enemy of the people. I'm glad you chose an alternative source right here, Conservative Cat. ABC, they dismiss the LA riots because, and I'm quoting here, it's just a bunch of people having fun watching cars burn. So they're dismissing the severity of these riots. The mainstream media, you don't hate the media enough. We're going to get to all of it. But first, I wanted to open up the question. I was in Revelation just yesterday, and I was reading this. Coming out of his mouth a sharp sword, with which to strike down the nations. So this is Jesus. He's on the back of a white horse, and he's going to, every knee will bow, and they will profess Jesus Christ as Lord. And I am so excited for that day. After the tribulation, after we're raptured, he comes down. We're going to live in the 1,000-year millennium of just peace, no problems. And we're just going to live side by side with Jesus Christ. Now, it says right here, coming out of his mouth is a sharp sword with which he strikes down the nations. He will rule them with an iron scepter. So I read this, and some people say that he's going to just say one word and then poof, all the armies are going to fall. Okay, all the armies that are led by the Antichrist, they're all going to fall. And I think about this all of the time, and I want to ask you, what word do you think Jesus Christ is going to say when he comes back? I am so excited. I think, me personally, Yahweh means I am. If you're a Christian, you worship the Lord, Yahweh. Allah is a different concept of God. Uh, Yahweh is a God of mercy and justice, Yahweh. And it's so interesting. I read something about Yahweh being like the breath in our lungs. I am, Holy Spirit is in us, right? The Holy Spirit, which is part of the Trinity. Yahweh. What does that sound like? So our very existence, Yahweh. So he might not even say a word. Maybe he just takes a breath and then the armies fall. I don't know. What do you think Jesus would say? The one word that just sends the nations falling down to their knees, professing him as Jesus Christ, our Savior. I think about that a lot. So visit patriotpumpenergy.com. Use promo code ConservativeCat for $10 off. As always, welcome back. Appreciate you being here. We are going to be taking aim at one of the most pressing constitutional battles brewing right here in our own backyard, the attack on your Second Amendment rights with the Assault Weapons Act. And folks, this is just not another bill. This is not a bureaucratic hiccup. This is a full-blown top-down attempt to criminalize law-abiding gun owners, sportsmen, hunters, people who defend their liberty in the name. And they are doing this in the name of safety. I want to be very clear. The gun control advocates, they're saying, oh, this is all about safety. It's not about safety. This is very, very, very clear that this is about taking away your Second Amendment rights. So pour yourself a cup of coffee, sit back, and let's claw into the facts here. Last year, Governor J.B. Pritzker, yes, the same governor who thinks Springfield knows better than you and what's better for your family, they think that they can dictate your life. Yes, this governor, the tyrannical one, Governor J.B. Pritzker, he signed into law the Protect Illinois Communities Act. This is also known as PICA, P-I-C-A. Sounds noble, right? I mean, protect Illinois communities. Who doesn't want to protect communities? I want to protect communities. You want to protect communities. I get that. But what is this really about? Come on now. We know Springfield. They name bills and they're not really about protecting Illinois communities. Really what this is about is banning the sale, possession, and the purchase of very commonly owned semi-automatic rifles. They label them as assault weapons, and they have taken away these magazines. Now, this targets magazines that hold more than 10 rounds for rifles and more than 15 rounds for handguns. Okay, so now let me tell you. Now, actually, you tell me, who do you think follows that law? Throw it in the comments section. Who follows the Protect Illinois Communities Act? Because I'm telling you right now, I don't think it's the gangbanger on the south side of Chicago. I think it's going to be the hunter who lives in Normal, Illinois and hunts on the weekends. I think it's going to be that guy. I don't think that the gangbanger in Southside Chicago is really going to follow this law and not own rifles with more than 10 round magazines or own handguns with more than 15 rounds for handguns. So that's right. This law is designed to punish law-abiding citizens, and it's designed to make criminals feel more powerful because they're the only ones who have these guns now. Because the hunter from Normal, Illinois is probably going to follow this. The gangbanger in Chicago, not going to follow the law. Thankfully, we have patriots who are fighting back. The Second Amendment Foundation, SAF, with the backup of Illinois State Rifle Association, the Firearm Policy Coalition, and gun shops, they have all filed this legal challenge. Okay? They're standing with a man. His name is Dane Harrell. And this case is now known as the Harrell versus Rowell. That's Kwame Raoul. They're suing the state over this law. Okay, so that's the name of the case. Twice now, not once, but twice now, we have had federal courts side with the gun rights advocates. Okay, so that means the judges saw this law and they said, okay, this is a clear violation of the Second Amendment. So Bill Sack, SAF's director of legal operations, summed it up perfectly in the center square. Quote, modern semi-automatic rifles and standard capacity magazines are overwhelmingly in common use for lawful purposes, including self-defense. So let me repeat this. This is common use. This part is very important because this is the exact standard that the U.S. Supreme Court set in Heller and Bruin decisions. Okay, so you guys, if you want to look those up, write it down with the green crayon. Heller and Bruin. Okay, these were decisions that were made by the Supreme Court. And basically what these decisions say is that if a firearm is commonly used by law-abiding citizens, it's protected, end of story. Okay, so there's two courts. Now, not once, but twice. There have been courts that have sided with these gun rights advocates. So guess what? Twice already, federal courts have ruled in favor of SAF. This is the Second Amendment Foundation. And they say that this law violates the Constitution. We're not talking about fringe arguments here. These are very mainstream arguments. These are arguments that have well-reasoned rulings and have been reasoned in the past, in past cases that have gone before the U.S. Supreme Court. So this is a very mainstream argument that, hey, these are commonly used, so they're protected under the Constitution. The Second Amendment protects our rights to own firearms, and it protects our rights to use these common firearms. AR-15 is very, very common, and we should use these for lawful purposes. And this includes, standard capacity magazines, handguns with over 15 rounds. It's pretty standard. Millions of these are in circulation, AR-15s, and they're used for self-defense. They're used for competitive shooting. And sometimes you just go use an AR-15 for just plain fun at the range. I'm going to be honest. I've shot an AR-15. Not my favorite. I'm more of a 12 gauge type shotgun girl. I like it when the butt of the gun really just rips my shoulder back. A double barrel shotgun. That's me personally. I don't like using an AR-15, but they're highly accurate and they're a lot of fun on the range. Me personally, I just like the bigger the boom, the better. If I could shoot a cannon, that would be really fun. But this law bans AR-15 simply because they look scary. That's it. There's no evidence that these are assault weapons or that these are more dangerous than any other firearm. And that's what this law is based off, is that they're scary looking. And folks, this isn't just about Illinois. Similar bans have popped up in places like Washington State, Maryland, and the courts across the country have taken up this issue. Courts across the country. And some say the bans are fine. Some say they're unconstitutional. In the state of Illinois, we've had federal courts twice now say that this is unconstitutional. And here's the kicker. The Supreme Court is watching. In fact, 3 justices, including Justice Brett Kavanaugh, have already signaled that they are going to take up this issue soon, the Supreme Court. And many believe Harrell versus Rowell is going to be that case and tip the scales. Okay, so that would be monumental here in the state of Illinois. That would mean Illinois is ground zero for the next major Second Amendment case, and that could affect gun rights nationwide, which means, hey, Maryland, Washington State, your courts, perhaps, and I don't know what their judges decided, but it's happening all over the country. Things like this, assault weapons bans. Even if their judges had said, oh, well, we think that it's constitutional and we're going to let the assault weapons ban stand, the Supreme Court could take up this Illinois case, and that could have major effects on gun rights nationwide. So when people tell you this law doesn't affect you, or maybe you're not a gun owner, don't believe it, because if they can ban rifles based on how they look, what's next? What's next on their ban list? A Bible because it's too radical? A gas stove because it burns too hot, uses too much gas? It's a very slippery slope we're on, and we are already halfway down it, folks. So I want to debunk this gun control narrative. The gun control crowd, so groups like Everytown, Moms Demand Action, all of that, they say that this law is common sense and that it's reasonable restriction. They claim that this is going to reduce gun violence and prevent mass shootings, but let's be real, criminals don't follow magazine laws. Okay, you think somebody that's planning a mass attack is going to check to see if his magazine is legal? No. Your neighbor is the one who is going to be affected by this law, who wants to defend his home. And suddenly he's a felon because he's owned an AR-15 for years, decades now. And he automatically became a felon overnight with this law, with the PICA, the Protect Illinois Communities Act. So let's be honest, the term assault weapon is just a political invention. This makes no sense. A baseball bat could be an assault weapon if you use it against somebody in a violent way and is not justified violence. That's an assault weapon, I guess. Right? These are just semi-automatic rifles, which means you pull the trigger and a bullet comes out. Like, it's the same as your dad's hunting rifle. I mean, the only difference really with the AR-15s, and they're going after these, is the features. It's a made-up category, assault weapons. Weapons. It's a made-up category to cause fear, mainly in the uninformed, people who haven't shot a gun before. The gun control agenda is not about saving lives. The gun control agenda is about control. They're using fear and emotion to take away your rights. One bullet, one law, and one freedom at a time. So if it's not the Second Amendment, it's going to be the First Amendment next. Okay, so stay informed, follow this case, write it down if you have to. Harrell versus Raoul. Now the case is in the hands of the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals, and the SAF, the Second Amendment Foundation, says the court now has the full trial record. So what does that mean? It means all the evidence, all the arguments, they're all there. And it's time for the judges to do their damn job, strike this unconstitutional nonsense down. The U.S. Supreme Court has been quiet lately. They declined a Maryland case recently, but Justice Brett Kavanaugh said, we're going to be coming up on this issue soon. So, folks, the Harrell case could be the one they take up, Harrell versus Raoul. And this case could be the Bruin of magazine bans. So look at the case Bruin, B-R-U-E-N. You can look that up in the Heller of so-called assault weapon laws. So these cases both argued that because it was all common use, that it's legal and that it's end of story. If it's commonly used, if it's in circulation, then people can use it. So, yeah, why does it matter? You might not think that it matters to you and that guns are not your fight, but let me tell you, they can chip away one right at a time. If they can chip away this right, they're going to chip away all of them. Today, it's your rifle. Tomorrow, it's your free speech. Next week, it'll be your church. And the week following that, it could be your kid's curriculum. You wouldn't have any say in your kid's curriculum. So to all my freedom-loving Illinoisans out there, speak out. Support the Second Amendment Foundation. Call your representative. Show up at town halls. Vote with your feet. Vote with your voice. Vote with your conscience, because government can tell you, if they can tell you what kind of gun you can buy and how many bullets that gun can hold, they're not just seeking to regulate your weapons. They want to regulate your will. They want to own your free will. So that's today's show. I do want to get to Governor J.B. Pritzker here. He was at this commencement, today's episode. I want to call this segment of the show Graduating into Delusion, Pritzker's Knox College Comedy Hour. So, like, this is like not leadership, okay? This is a late night TV show. That's what this reminds me of. He did this like commencement speech, but he roasted Elon Musk and Donald Trump instead of uplifting these young minds. And this is really supposed to be a nonpartisan, not very political event, right? But he made it political, probably because he wants to run for president in 2028. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
So first piece of advice. You don't need to subscribe to every single streaming service. You don't. Frankly, if you have Netflix and Apple Plus and whatever HBO is calling itself now, you are mostly covered. If you want to mix in a little Hulu or Disney Plus, I'm not going to fight you on that. But I have found that if you have access to at least one good post-apocalyptic drama, plus one hilarious but heartwarming comedy, and either one of the two documentaries about the Fire Festival, all your entertainment needs will be met. But speaking on behalf of all dads, we have moved into an era of egregious lighting. And frankly, it's killing us fathers. You don't need an overhead light, a table lamp, and a ring light all shining on you for a social media post. Maybe maintain a little mystery, would you? Remember that it's always darkest before the dawn, and dawn comes with natural light, so there's no need to run up the electricity bill. Third, we need you to put air in your tires. I know that when that little tire gauge comes on your dashboard, you view it in the same way that Elon Musk views the United States Constitution, as a mere suggestion. But if you're not putting air in your tires before the winter, then you are going to end up just like Elon, with a car that no one wants to drive. In a world like the one we live in today, we need confidence just to get up every day. Put your pants on, go out and greet the uncertainty that awaits us. But we need doubt to survive in it. Because doubt makes us curious. Doubt keeps us humble. Doubt makes us seek when it would be so much easier just to sit idle. Doubt prompts us to ask good questions. Questions like, am I looking at all the facts or just the ones I want to see? Should I rely solely on nervous first impressions, or should I give a second date a chance? Should I trust everything that my uncle posts on Facebook? Is it a good idea to accept a jumbo jet from a foreign country that would very much like to spy on us?
Okay, let me break this down. Let's break this down. Governor J.B. Pritzker, who presided over the mass exodus here in Illinois, the spiraling crime, the skyrocketing taxes, the death of small businesses, was handed an honorary doctorate from Knox College. And what did he do with that opportunity? He gave a speech that was very, I'll call it, less than inspirational. And it was more about scoring cheap applause. This reminded me of bad late night TV. Pritzker, he started off and he gave some dad advice. That's what he called it. And his tip for the future leaders of America: limit how many streaming services you use. So, or you have. So he says this, quote, I'm not making this up. By the way, I'm not making this up. He actually said this, and I'm reading directly from his speech that he was reading from directly. So, that's the thing about jokes. You probably shouldn't have them scripted out and rely so heavily on that script, JB. It's very clear that you're reading, and it didn't come off very comedic at all. Comedy's not your thing there, JB. It's not my thing either, but it's really not Governor JB Pritzker's thing. So he says, quote, if you have access to at least one good post-apocalyptic drama, one hilarious and heartwarming comedy, and either one of the two Fire Festival documentaries, all your entertainment needs will be met. So you have to limit how many streaming services you have. Think about this. This guy, he didn't mention reading books. He didn't mention starting a business. He didn't mention working hard, serving your community. He didn't mention any of that. Nope. His advice to this graduating class was get Netflix, but don't have too much Netflix. Maybe just get Netflix and not Hulu. This is the same guy who presides over a state with the highest taxes in the damn country. Families have to choose at this point between groceries and gas here in Illinois, and he's concerned about how many streaming services you have or are subscribed to. How about this, Governor? How about this? If we weren't taxed so much, maybe we could afford Hulu and electricity. But it gets better. So he went on to say this, quote, I know that when the little tire gauge comes on your dashboard, you view it in the same way Elon Musk views the U.S. Constitution, as a mere suggestion. Cue the laughter of the liberal elite in the audience. Let's stop there, okay? Let's stop right here and dive into this because the governor is mocking one of the most successful innovators of our time. I don't like Elon Musk. I've told you that several times. I don't like that he professes to be a cultural Christian. It makes me nervous. It's a very poor doctrine that you can tell people that, oh, you can follow all the values of Christianity, but not profess Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. You don't even have to recognize that there is a God, that there is a creator. Elon Musk subscribes to that. So I'm not a supporter of Elon Musk, especially now with the whole beef between he and Donald Trump. Never been a fan of Elon Musk. But this is what I will say about the guy. He risked everything to build Tesla, SpaceX, Starlink, and he brought Twitter back to free speech. Okay, because he supposedly ignores the Constitution. No, he's a free speech advocate. I will say Twitter isn't as free speech as other platforms like Rumble. He did when he purchased. He kept like this really anti-free speech woman on as I think the CEO. And it was just not as free as it could be. And he bent the knee to Brazil and a few other countries where you can't even get Twitter in some of those countries, or you can get Twitter in those countries, but he agreed to monitor free speech in those countries in order to stay on in those countries. Rumble, you can't get in certain countries because Rumble said, no, we're not doing that. We just won't be here in said communist country. Fill in the blank, right? But Elon Musk, he doesn't spit and ignore the spit all over the Constitution. I will say that he is a private sector powerhouse. He's created companies that have had success. And Twitter, yeah, he made it more free than it was here in the United States. He's more of a free speech advocate than Jack Dorsey. It was better to have Elon as the CEO of, or as the owner of Twitter and not Jack Dorsey. So, but the main thing is that this is all coming from Governor J.B. Pritzker, who literally broke his own COVID orders by sending his family to Florida. Teddy Pritzker, go look her up on Instagram. She has fun. She's partying. She's riding horses in Florida. And meanwhile, you're here because her dad locked you down and told you to cancel Thanksgiving, told you to mask up. And if you don't, then the police will be called on you. That actually happened to me here in the state of Illinois. I was at a Portillo's and I got the police called on me because I wouldn't mask up. So there you have it. He's not a follower of the Constitution, and he's all about rules for thee, but not for me. He had his daughter partying in Florida, sent his entire family to Florida, the free state of Florida, where they could go and eat dinner and have fun. And you were told to lock down. I had to, in this state, have a little letter. It was a little letter that I kept in my visor of my Chevy Cruze. It was all beat up. I ran into a lot of stuff when I was younger. This was 2020. So I'd have been, I don't know, like 19, 20 years old, something like that. And I was waitressing and I was deemed essential. Okay. But I had to keep a note in my car that had the official stamp of Illinois on it, this letter, and present it to police if they pulled me over if I was out and about. Like quite literally, my employer gave me this letter and it was an official state letter with an official stamp. And you had to keep that in your visor. And if you were pulled over, you could show it to the police officer and they'd be like, okay, you're allowed to be out because you have been deemed essential. Like, think about that. So no progressive graduation speech, commencement speech would be complete without a jab at President Donald Trump. Now, he didn't mention Trump by name, but he did say this: should I trust everything my uncle posts on Facebook? Is it a good idea to accept a jumbo jet from a foreign nation that would very much likely spy on us? Now, that was obviously a swipe at President Donald Trump's administration. I don't even know if he officially accepted this, the Boeing 747 from Qatar. Now, folks, I had actually heard something from some Indonesian missionaries at Faith Church here in Lincoln. Plug for Faith Church. They're a great church here in Lincoln. And I went to a Bible study and they had some Indonesian missionaries speak to us. And they said something that really struck a chord with me. that Jesus Christ died for even the Muslim terrorists, the Islamic terrorists, the extremists who burned down churches. And that really struck a chord with me. And the leadership coming from President Donald Trump when it comes to these Middle Eastern countries, he's lifting the sanctions in exchange of, hey, you have to start treating Israel better, right? And we'll lift these sanctions off of you. Really, this is the most Christian thing I think a president has ever done. Okay, so this was an aircraft, by the way, manufactured by an American company, first of all. Second, it's a military diplomatic tool, not a conspiracy theory like, oh, this aircraft, if you accept it, they're going to spy on you. Like, come on now. Like, you really think that they're not going to go and check the plane and make sure there's no bugs or spyware? Come on, like, what world do you live in, Governor J.B. Pritzker? That's a straight up conspiracy theory. It was manufactured by an American company, by the way, Boeing. And Pritzker, it's hilarious coming from him, considering he has never said a word about the Chinese land purchases. By the way, the CCP, Goshen, ties to the CCP. This is an electric vehicle battery maker planned for Manteno, Illinois. They want to build this electric vehicle battery manufacturing plant right there in this old Kmart warehouse facility. Now, the village of Manteno, really corrupt stuff going on there. You had the mayor, his entire family had land, agricultural land, okay, and they sold it to Goshen for way above market value, way above. So the mayor there, Tim Nugent, that's what his name is, Nugent, the mayor there, the village mayor, all of his family sold off this land, and they got millions upon millions of dollars from Goshen. In exchange, they bought up all of the land. Now, this is the same Governor J.B. Pritzker who gave this company all kinds of tax credits, $530 million or so in tax credits, to buy up that land, by the way, that they've used towards buying up this land from the Tim Nugent's family. Pritzker doesn't also, he also doesn't talk about TikTok data collection. He doesn't talk about foreign cartel violence in Illinois communities, specifically in Chicago. He doesn't speak out against any of that. Okay, but yet he's got the nerve to talk about this aircraft that I think Donald Trump accepted it, but I'd have to look into it because there was talk that he wasn't going to accept it and possibly accept it. It really doesn't matter because it was manufactured here by an American company. They're going to check it for spyware. And this is a sign of good faith, right? So accepting a gift from traditional adversaries is a move. It's a smart move. And what he's trying to do is actually create peace in the Middle East and not just go there and keep these forever wars going. He actually wants real peace. So let me ask you a question. Why would a man elected to serve the people of Illinois, Republican, Democrat, Independent, take a non-political occasion like a graduation at Knox College? Why would he do this? A graduation ceremony supposed to be non-political. Why would he turn it into a partisan roast? He obviously roasted the Trump administration. He roasted Elon Musk here. The answer is very simple. He is playing to the national Democratic base. So Governor J.B. Pritzker is not trying to lead Illinois. He is trying to audition for 2028 as the presidential nominee. This wasn't about Knox College, okay? This was about MSNBC clips, X likes, Twitter likes, lining up donors who hate Donald Trump, hate Elon, and hate you if you disagree with them, okay? This was about securing his base. And let's look at the reality back home, shall we? Illinois is ranked in the bottom 5 for fiscal stability, okay? Chicago has a retail theft crisis so bad that national chains are fleeing from Chicago. They said, we can't do business in Chicago. It's really bad. They're locking up deodorant. Okay, Walgreens is locking up deodorant. And we're still down tens of thousands of small businesses post-COVID. And the working class families, where are they going? They're leaving to states like Indiana, Iowa, Tennessee, Texas, and they're taking their tax dollars and their dreams with them. And Governor J.B. Pritzker is out there telling kids to check their tire pressure. And meanwhile, this guy, he's running a car with 4 flats. He's running Illinois into the ground on 4 flat tires. Like, we've already got 4 flat tires here in the state of Illinois. He's just running it further into the ground, this car we're on. So let me speak directly to the graduates of Knox College, shall I? And to every really young American listening. Your future is not going to be built on sarcastic billionaires giving you dad jokes. Okay, this is a sarcastic billionaire making dad jokes, and he's in a robe. It's going to be built by you. If you're allowed to keep your paycheck, if you're allowed to start your business, if you're allowed to speak your mind, if you're allowed to live under the Constitution, and that Constitution actually means something, it's going to be built by you. Don't take your cues from Pritzker, Newsom, Biden. These people are career aristocrats. They have taken advantage of people who make things. They've never built anything in their lives. They've gotten rich off of your tax dollars. And you know who gets mocked by people like Pritzker every day? The entrepreneurs, the people who actually make. This is why President Donald Trump gets mocked by these people. It's because he's an actual entrepreneur and he built something. The Trump Hotel enterprise, was a real estate kingpin, if you will. He dominated in the private sector, dominated, and these people are disgruntled. They're angry about it. They mock people like entrepreneurs like President Donald Trump, business owners, farmers, truckers, veterans, moms, dads who ask too many questions at a school board meeting. By the way, they'll label you as an extremist if you ask too many questions at a school board meeting. So people like you, that's who these types of people mock. People like you. In closing, I do want to talk about how Governor J.B. Pritzker used this commencement speech to blast Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And really, American self-reliance. Young Americans, the future is built by you. And he gave shallow advice to these kids just starting their adult lives. And instead of urging courage, strength, and faith, okay, he kept talking about doubt. What about faith? He didn't talk about that. He wanted to go up there and act like a piss poor comedian instead of being the governor that he should be and the leader that he should be. And really what he should be doing is taking a look at his own house. Okay. Take a look at Illinois. So keep your dad vice, Pritzker. And I'm gonna take faith. I'm gonna take family. I'm gonna take freedom. And I think that young Americans everywhere should focus on faith, family, and freedom. All right, I want to get to ABC. ABC, oh boy. This really shocked me, and things really don't shock me anymore. But this one did. The bare minimum threshold to calling something mostly peaceful or a mostly peaceful protest. You'd think that setting cars on fire would be that bare minimum threshold. Like once cars start getting set on fire, we can't call it a mostly peaceful protest anymore. And that sort of starts reaching a point where we have to call this thing a riot. You'd think, right? According to ABC, it apparently is just a bunch of people having fun, watching cars burn, everybody's favorite pastime. So if you really needed any more justification as to why the media has become largely irrelevant, mainstream media, legacy media, traditional media outlets, largely irrelevant, here's why. Take a listen.
Large group of people. It could turn very volatile if you move law enforcement in there in the wrong way and turn what is just a bunch of people having fun watching cars burn into a massive confrontation and altercation between officers and demonstrators. So a large group of people. It could turn very volatile if you move law enforcement in there in the wrong way and turn.
Stop. No. Stop it. I'm sorry. You have to be absolutely insane, so deep in your liberal fantasy to watch rioters setting cars on fire and still believe that this is about helping an illegal alien earn a living and to send money back to his family in Mexico. This is not about that. This is about chaos. And there's only one particular demographic that still watches cable news, by the way. Most of these people believe something while watching the exact opposite. They'll believe anything that the reporter says. Okay. The exact opposite is unfolding before your eyes, and they're showing this. Like, do they not realize that the screen cut to the actual devastation in LA? They'll accept this demographic, which is really just 65-year-old women who are white and crazy cat ladies, and yeah, that's really who watches cable news TV, and they watch way too much of it. It's typically the older demographic, which, no offense to anybody who's older, I'm talking about the crazy liberal women who sit in front of their CNN for 9 hours a day, okay, or their mainstream news for 9 hours a day, cable news, okay, and they will believe this reporter's explanation as gospel. Okay, so they have not learned their lesson, obviously, the left, because this is exactly the kind of nonsense that cost them the 2024 election. You can't claim 2 + 2 = 5 and then expect the public to believe and accept that as truth. Okay, voters are a lot smarter than the media gives them credit for. You look at this and you say, oh, this is mostly peaceful. Whoa, 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 whoa. I'm seeing it unfold before my eyes, and people are setting cars on fire, throwing bricks at cars passing by on the interstate. What is even the point of justifying this? Really? I mean, watching cars burn? What? You're saying, what does this have anything to do with watching cars burn? This is about extremists believing this ideology that no human is illegal, when no, that's not true. Human beings can do illegal things, and they can be doing illegal activity. So that's something that the left is never going to really have an answer for. Like, why do you believe that? Why do you believe that no human is illegal? Clearly, a human being, you just saw it there, can do illegal things like setting cop cars on fire, throwing bricks at innocent people driving by on these highways. Nevertheless, I don't think this reporter would be saying the same thing if it had been his car. I think that'd be pretty interesting. What if it was your car? Okay, I'd love to see you, leftist media reporter from ABC, continue to say, oh, no human being is illegal. This is a mostly peaceful protest. I'd love to see you continue to say that if that was your car burning up in the street. The point remains, human beings can do illegal things. Bottom line. And no amount of media propaganda is going to change that fact. Human beings can do and do illegal things all the time. And they try to gaslight you into oblivion. And I'm just sick of it. All right. I got to take a quick break. Wow. I got to take a quick break, but we are going to get into a few things here this morning. I want to talk about the Safety Act. There are calls to repeal the Safety Act here in the state of Illinois. Safety for criminals, danger for children, by the way, the Safety Act. And I do want to get to State Senator Steve McClure. He blasts this prison hospice bill. Now, he says, quote, we can't memorialize, or really what he says we can't memorialize victims. So we can't remember victims, but we name laws after killers. So I want to get to this bill that passed out of both houses, the Senate and the House in the state of Illinois. And then I want to get to the LA burning. They're burning up. The city is burning up again. They burned, cop cars, threw bricks at people during the 2020 riots. Now it's burning again over the illegal immigration. Donald Trump, he dropped this banger of a quote, by the way, and he's bringing law and order back. And I don't really care if California likes it or not. I don't care if Governor Gavin Newsom likes it. Guess what? Donald Trump is bringing law and order back. I really hope he invokes the Insurrection Amendment, or the Insurrection Act. So I don't know about you, but when I look at the photos from January 6th, it's just, this guy in a funny mask, and he's carrying Nancy Pelosi's podium. They're kind of in the barriers of these ropes in the Capitol. And I look at that and I'm like, okay, people called that an insurrection, but these people are flying the Mexican flag, burning cop cars, burning down buildings, and throwing rocks or bricks at people who are driving by on the interstate, innocent bystanders. That's not an insurrection. I think that Donald Trump needs to invoke the Insurrection Act. The Marine Corps, there. That's exciting. They're going to probably handle it. But I'll talk about invoking the Insurrection Act, what that would mean here coming up in just a little bit. Find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. And you can subscribe today. That really helps me out, folks. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Conservative Cat Clips, where we cut through the spin, we call out the nonsense, and we do it all with an unapologetic American flair. I'm your host, Kat, and today we're exposing the truth behind nonprofit organizations and how they helped fuel the border crisis. Let's be real, Joe Biden, he took an exit, but he left a border-sized crater in our national security, and really the biggest, sneakiest players weren't the politicians or the cartels, really. Those nonprofit organizations, yep, the tax-free do-gooders, they ran logistics for a mass illegal immigration operation. Take Catholic Charities, for instance. Catholic Charities USA, they pocketed $1.4 billion in 2022 alone. More than 60% of that came from government grants, your tax dollars. Then they turned around, used those tax dollars for bus rides, hotel rooms, and legal defense for people who blatantly broke our federal immigration laws. HIAS, they got millions in grants, and then they resettled people deep into the United States. They didn't do any kind of vetting, no transparency, and they had zero regard for the towns impacted by this overrun, like Springfield, Ohio. And just because the administration changed doesn't mean that the nonprofit conveyor belt has stopped. These groups have built a machine, and they built a machine under Joe Biden, and they're still using it to move tens of thousands of people, often under the radar. According to congressional watchdogs, just 4 major national profits helped transport and shelter over 35,000 illegal migrants in a single month. Just 4 helped transport and shelter 35,000 illegal immigrants in a single month. This is insane. That's not charity. That's infrastructure for illegal immigrants, and you helped pay for it. They housed them. They gave them hotel rooms. They gave them legal representation. And you helped pay for it, and you didn't even know it. Whether you knew it or not, they didn't care. Even now, as the new administration tries to restore law and order, these nonprofit organizations, they're lawyering up, they're pushing lawsuits, and they're working overtime to try to stall these deportations and keep the broken pipeline flowing. They want that pipeline to keep flowing, where they take tens of thousands of people and then they give them jobs. And they put them in jobs where they're ultimately going to be used as slave labor, because these companies are going to hang their illegal status over their heads. It's time to cut the cash, investigate the players, pull the nonprofit masks off, and we need to close up the border. We need to pull the nonprofit mask off the open borders agenda. Because if a group is using government money to move, house, and protect people in violation of federal law, that's not compassion, it's collusion. And I'll call it that. This has been Conservative Cat Clips. I'm Kat, reminding you that the border crisis wasn't built by weak presidents. It really wasn't built by Joe Biden. It was powered by rich nonprofits hiding behind halos and hashtags. And our laws were trampled all over, and our communities were overwhelmed. Let's clean it up, and let's do it for real this time and defang these nonprofits. Met him back during the 2022 election cycle, right here in Bloomington, and he's an author, and it was such a privilege to meet you back then. Deeply compassionate advocate. Welcome back to the Conservative Cat Show, where we claw through the noise and we speak truth, and we do it boldly, and we keep it real: faith, family, and freedom. And today's guest, I actually met him back during the 2022 election cycle, right here in Bloomington, and he was running for District 10 in McLean County, which feels like forever ago. Ross Webb ended up taking that baton, but he entered the race. His name's William Holditch, and he's an author, and it was such a privilege to meet you back then. Deeply compassionate advocate and a great candidate. But you've continued your hard work long after campaign signs kind of went down, and you've created this book, and it specifically helps adult children advocate for their aging parents and loved ones. And folks, this is something that every single one of us is going go through some time, at one point in our lives. And William, I wanted to have you on to talk about your book a little bit, but also, I stumbled upon this social media post, and, it's been really on my heart. And I was like, I got to really reach out to William. There are a lot of people out there who don't want to care for their parents, or even go as far as to be estranged from your parents. It's a cultural trend, but there's an opposite side to this. I think that there's two extremes, right? So you've got those maybe Gen Xers, maybe millennials. There's this growing trend in culture where, and people don't want to talk about it, where adult children are cutting off their parents for no apparent reason. And I'm not talking about abusive relationships or dangerous relationships. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about cutting parents off. According to research, a vast majority of estrangements between parents and adult children are actually initiated by the child, not the parent. And, that's happening. But there's also this other side that I don't think we get to see, because we do see this cultural trend that there are adult children, and they're not disposing these relationships and tossing them aside, but rather they're seeking help. And I think your book does that, William. So tell me a little bit about that, why you wrote the book.
Well, so the book comes from really two major events in my life. The first being the death of my mother in 2017, and how we got completely caught off guard. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't have any information. We were sitting there in hospice, and the next thing we know, we're like, do we have funeral plans for my mother? And the answer was no, we didn't. So we stopped hospice to do funeral plans in the middle of doing hospice. So it was very chaotic. And then a number of years later, my father had a heart attack, and I was talking to my sister about what we knew about Dad. And the answer was, we really didn't know anything. I mean, we knew he was a VA. We thought he might have a pension. We thought this, but we really didn't know. So I sat down that night and wrote out 168 pages of questions that I thought were important to know. Everything from personal information, medical information, and financial information. And then took all of that brainstorming and kind of put it together in a workbook, a fill-in-the-blank workbook where you sit down with your parent and you just start filling out the information.
Wow. That's well, and it's incredibly helpful. And, I can't help but feel, to recite this, like, hey, the Bible tells us to honor thy mother and father, right? And I'm sorry to hear about your parents. And, it's truly a very difficult thing to see. I mean, I didn't lose my father during COVID-19, but a lot of my listeners know that he came very, very close. And just even being close like that. And I don't know anything about my dad. He's kind of like one of those silent types. And maybe boomers are kind of like that, where they don't disclose a lot of personal information about themselves. I don't know what that is, but there's like this divide, I think, between generations. Now, you could go an extreme and go completely estranged, but maybe a way we can reconcile or even build a relationship with our parents, or for these generations to build a relationship with their parents, is through your book, coming up with these questions. Or you haven't coming up with these questions, you've kind of provided a one-stop shop for someone to get to know mom and dad.
And it's even more important than getting just to know mom and dad. What it is when you're standing in that hospital room and the doctors and nurses and case managers start asking you questions about medical history and drug allergies and financial responsibilities and all of those things that will get asked to you if you end up in that situation. These are things that you're going to have to know, and you're either going to learn them through my workbook and have that information when you need it, or when you get there, then you're going to have to start playing detective and try to figure that information out. At some point, you still will need it. So it's better to start with a prepared start prepared, and instead of playing catch up.
Yeah. And, I think about Illinois. I don't know if you heard about their assisted physician suicide bill that they introduced, where, hey, if you feel like needing assisted suicide, I mean, they called it medical aid in dying, but I mean, we're living in a period of time right now where if you don't know these decisions, somebody might make the decision for them or encourage them or coax them into making a decision that they wouldn't necessarily want to make. So I think that it's really important that people get your workbook. Where is it available, William?
So it's available on Amazon. It's Strategic Planning for the Golden Years. It is a fill in the blank workbook. So it's not something you're going to sit down and do over one Sunday dinner. It is multiple days of meetings, of sit down dinners, because it's intensive. It goes through all sorts of stuff that most people don't even think of. Like a big one, Facebook passwords and Google passwords and bank passwords and those kinds of things that most people don't even think of that they need.
Yeah.
So, and then it goes through your medical history of your parent. Like your dad. Your dad's probably like my dad. I have no idea what my dad's blood type is, what his medical history is, what surgeries he's had. I know he served in Vietnam. I don't know if he has any combat-related injuries, that kind of stuff. So, I mean, those things are those things that are gonna need to know. Does your dad have VA benefits? I have no idea if my dad has VA benefits. And does he? He should, but has he done the paperwork? And those are the problems. So it's all about the win right now because, and this is going to sound really bad, but there's 100 million people in the next 20 years between the silent generation and the baby boomers that are going to go through end of life processes. And Gen Xers and millennials are going to be the ones that are going to have to help them through it. And so just be aware, it may not be you. It may be your spouse. It may be a cousin. It may be your brother or sister. Somebody in your family is going to get affected by this.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and, I think that maybe because of the rise of social media and technology, perhaps like these Gen Xers, maybe millennials more so, they've been so distracted maybe, or not really thinking of all of these modern day problems like the Facebook password and things like that.
And that's the problem with most people. Like I'm 50, in my early 50s, and I'm busy raising kids, and I'm busy working, and I'm busy doing this. I'm not thinking about my dad. He's great. I talk to my dad every couple of days, but I'm not thinking, oh my God, dad's going to have a stroke, and the next thing I know, I'm going to have to take care of him too, or get diagnosed with Alzheimer's or dementia. And most people, it's not even something they're thinking about. And so I kind of jokingly tell people, if you remember when you were 14 years old and your mom and dad set you down and had the conversation with you about the birds and the bees, well, now you're 54 years old and you have to sit down and have the conversation with your parents that at some point they are no longer going to be able to advocate for themselves, and you're going to be the one that advocates for them. And you're not trying to take over their life. All you want to do is collect the information so that they can get the care that they've paid for, that they've earned, and they deserve. And that's the goal of this.
Yeah, because we love our mom and dads. That's right. And we honor our fathers and our mothers.
Yes.
And they deserve the best. And your book is going to help you do that. So again, one more time, William, tell us where we can get the book.
It's on Amazon, and it's Strategic Planning for the Golden Years by William Holditch.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, William, for joining me here on the program.
Hey, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, folks. Good morning. I appreciate you being here. Conservative Cat, subscribe to the channel. That really helps me out. And head on over to patriotpumpenergy.com and grab your bottle of Patriot Pump. It's a supplement. It's got black pepper extract, a little bit of caffeine. It'll help you in your workout, but it'll also help you in your day-to-day. If you're working at the office, it's a great way to have some natural, the black pepper extract focus. You need to have some focus at work. This is the place to get your bottle of pure focus. I love Patriot Pump. So get yours. Conservative Cat is the promo code. Let's get to the Safety Act. The Safety Act is safe for criminals. It's safety for criminals, and it's actually a danger to children. We're going to get to that. And then we're also going to get to a senator blasting a prison hospice bill. He says, we can't memorialize victims, but we can name laws after killers. So we're going to get to that. And we're also going to get to LA burning again. It burned in 2020. Now it's burning over the immigration issue. Donald Trump dropped a banger of a quote, and he's bringing law and order back. But California, they're giving them some trouble, right? I don't care whether California likes it or not. Donald Trump should invoke the Insurrection Act. I don't know about you, but this is clearly an insurrection. They're flying Mexican flags. They're burning the American flag. This is very clearly an insurrection by Mexican foreign nationals. Okay, so welcome back to Conservative Cat. Like any sane Illinoisan, every average, decent Illinoisan, and basically, honestly, every American, we should be in total agreement on the Safety Act and repealing it and getting rid of it, quite frankly. So it is the so-called Safety, Accountability, Fairness, and Equity Today Act. It's Safety Act. Okay, so once again, it's proven to be anything but safe. It's a tragic, infuriating example of woke legislation written by people who have probably never worn a badge, sat in a courtroom. They are now protecting criminals, and they are failing our children. To be very clear, that's what this Safety Act does. They've probably never had to sit in a courtroom as a victim of crime, and these are the types of people who crafted the act. So let me walk you through two heartbreaking cases. And this just proves how this law is totally backwards and has turned our justice system here in the state of Illinois into a complete joke. So on November 6th, police responded to a home in Homer Glen. This is up north for a suspected carbon monoxide leak. This is interesting because when they entered the house, they found what you would think is a horror flick, or this is a horror story. Garbage everywhere, rotting foods, soiled diapers, medical waste, use of narcotics, needles all over the place. Okay, in the middle of this horror scene was a 2-year-old girl, lifeless. Her father, Edward Wire, was performing chest compressions, but it was too late. The autopsy revealed that it wasn't an accident. It wasn't tragedy, a tragic medical event. It was murder, pure and simple. This was murder of the child by her two parents. Neglect. So these two parents, right, the child's parents, and the girl's mother, so Alexa Balin, so it was Edward Wire and Alexa Balin, they were charged with first-degree murder. So what did the Illinois justice system do in this case? They didn't throw them behind bars. They didn't lock them up to protect the public. No, rather, and they didn't ensure justice for this little girl. This is a 2-year-old little girl found lifeless in the middle of a bunch of trash and needles in this filthy house. They didn't get justice for this little girl because of the Safety Act. They were released, these parents, and they were released before trial, and they got to go back home. Folks, I'm just going to say something, and it shouldn't be controversial. If you're charged with murdering your own toddler in a drug-infested, filth-ridden house, you should not get to go home and chill out before your trial. I'm sorry. That's not justice. This is a disgrace. There's another case here. I want to go through this case. Megan Boz, 37-year-old woman whose body was found stuffed in a storage container. Her alleged killer, Jose Luis Mendoza Gonzalez, is facing multiple felonies, including concealing a death. Her body was found in a storage container. Wow. And guess what? Thanks to the Safety Act, that guy was released before trial too. Can someone explain to me how the elimination of cash bail for felonies is supposed to make our community safer? How? What? Because right now, victims' families, they're standing outside these courthouses, these courtrooms with signs that say the Safety Act isn't safe. And they're right. It's not. These are real stories. These are real people. And State Representative Patrick Sheehan, former police officer, said it best. He said, quote, in the Center Square, they're released to the comfort of their own home, getting credit for time served while a 2-year-old is dead. He's not wrong. This law has completely flipped the script. Criminals are getting compassion. Victims are being ignored. Police are handcuffed. Judges have less discretion over these cases. And Illinois families, you're being forced to live with these consequences because these people are out free. This isn't a hypothetical anymore. This is real. This is real, and it's lethal. Okay, the Safety Act, remember when it first was passed and there were hypothetical situations we were getting ourselves into, and we said, well, what if murderers are let out before trial and they go and they murder somebody else? This kind of stuff is happening right now. It's real and it's deadly. So let's call this what it is. It's woke justice. The Safety Act was pushed through under the guise of fairness and equity, buzzwords. And what it really did, it shifted the focus off of the victims and gave more rights, privileges to criminals. And that is not compassion. Supporters of eliminating cash bail say it's fair because poor people can't afford to get out of jail. Here's the truth. Fairness doesn't mean letting out dangerous criminals, dangerous people, and letting them roam free just because they're broke. Okay? I don't care if you're poor. I don't care if you're rich. I don't care if you're black, white. I don't care if you're gay, straight, whatever it is. If you're a violent criminal, that's it. You go to jail. That's it. I don't care if you're broke or you're rich. If you killed somebody, no. Why are we letting dangerous people roam free? If you're dangerous, you need to stay behind bars. Fairness means keeping society safe. Fairness means justice for victims. Fairness means doing what's right and not politically fashionable. This law was passed during a lame duck session, by the way, without any kind of real input from the people. This wasn't like your average session that happens in the spring. This wasn't during regular session. This was the lame duck session. And people didn't get to have real input over this. They passed it through, forced it through without any real kind of consultation with law enforcement, prosecutors, or victims' families. And they put politics over protection. That's what the Safety Act does. Politics over protection. So now what? Representative Patrick Sheehan says that the law needs to be replaced, rethought, and he's absolutely right. Me, personally, I think we should just get rid of it. Go back to the way it was before, right? This isn't a small tweak that we need, or we don't need a patch job and try to figure out, we need to completely start over. And in fact, probably just get rid of the thing and just go back to what we were doing, right? Bring the stakeholders back to the table, real police officers, real prosecutors, real victims, advocates, real victims' families. Put the politics aside, write a law that actually protects innocent people instead of pampering the guilty, pampering convicts. Criminals. If we don't, tragedies like this are going to keep happening. And every time politicians in Springfield, they're gonna throw up their hands and they're gonna say, "Well, we didn't mean for this stuff to happen. We didn't mean for that 2-year-old girl to die in the middle of a drug-filthy house, in the middle of the floor, murdered by her parents, first-degree murder by her parents. We didn't mean for it to happen." Well, it did happen. This is the reality, and we need to fix it. You're responsible for it. Folks, it's time to stand up. It's not just ourselves, not just for ourselves, not just for your family, but we need to stand up for the voiceless, like that little 2-year-old in Homer Glen. Call your representatives, go to your county board meetings, really get your county boards to say, hey, we're not going to implement the Safety Act here. And I'd like to see the state come and try to force us to enact something like the Safety Act here. Really, that's what your county board, your local government is very powerful. They can pretty much say no to anything. And they need to demand a repeal of this law at the county level. And they just need to not implement it in their county. And they just need to say, nope, we're a sanctuary county. We're a sanctuary community when it comes to the Safety Act. And that's it. You can be done with it. We've had all kinds of all kinds of soft on crime policies here in the state of Illinois, and they just make our neighborhoods less safe. And really, it's all designed to make criminals more comfortable. And that brings me to yet another bill. So I want to talk about this bill. I'm your host, Kat, flowing through today's nonsense. scratching to the truth, exposing the political furballs. And the mainstream press wants you to ignore this story. This is yet another bill. I've talked about this before, but I wanted to hit it again. 2397. Okay. And it sounds harmless, right? What it does, it's the Illinois Department of Corrections. They're to report on hospice and palliative care for inmates, which I'm sure was already law. Okay, this is just virtue signaling. And if the Illinois Department of Corrections is not doing this, like collecting data, inmates' names, what kind of care they're receiving, what kind of medications they're on, if they're not doing that already, then that is a enforcement problem, and the agency is not doing their job, which means people either need to get fired, your Illinois Department of Corrections directors, the people at the tippity top who aren't enforcing the laws that are on the books and actually collecting data from our inmates, which is like, I feel like the core responsibility that they have, if not like the first responsibility, the second and the third. Collecting the name of your inmates is probably, I don't know, a priority. And if you're not doing that, then that speaks to the failure that is the agency. And we don't need to pass another damn law. Okay, we just need to make sure that the Department of Corrections is run by competent people and not DEI hires. Okay, women who don't know what they're doing. Just to be honest with you, okay, look at the tippity top of the Illinois Department of Corrections, and they're all DEI hires. Okay, now this is outrageous. This bill is named after a guy, Edward Thomas. Eddie Thomas is what he was nicknamed. And that name probably doesn't mean much to you. I think he died like in 2015 or something like that. He was in prison and he died of lung cancer, which is just, anybody who dies said this is a criminal, though. And we have to remember what he was in prison for. He murdered a 20-year-old man, Kevin Trimble. Okay. And he was a gangbanger. He was part of it was like some sort of black gang, like Black Power gang, okay, like Black Panther type gang. Okay, quite literally, I'm not making this up. Eddie Thomas is a man who threw Kevin headfirst down an elevator shaft. So here's the name of the gang, by the way, Black Disciple. Unprovoked, he killed this guy, and he was a member of the Black Disciple. He was a Chicago gang member. And folks, the General Assembly, they just named this law after him. And one, the law is stupid in the first place. Like, why the hell would we need to pass yet another law that tells the Department of Corrections, hey, you should probably write down and keep, notes about your inmates and what kind of care they're receiving? Yeah, that's like the basic functions of the DOC. They're not doing that? What the hell? Like, people need to be fired if that's happening, if they're not actually like collecting the data and the names of their prisoners. So let's get real here. State Senator Steve McClure, he stood up against this disgrace and he said that we can't memorialize DUI victims. They stopped doing this. I think the IDOT, they stopped memorializing. So there used to be like names or highways named or, signs that would memorialize DUI victims driving under the influence. And you can't name roads after fallen military heroes anymore. Although we renamed I-55 like Barack Obama Interstate or something like that. Oh, but we can't name him after military heroes anymore in the state of Illinois. We are now naming legislation after Black Disciple gang members, Black Power groups, Black Panther type groups, supremacist type groups, racial gangsters. Okay. So let that sink in. McClure, he's not opposing compassionate care. Okay. Yes, there should be compassionate care. And like I said, Eddie Thomas, lung cancer. They said, oh, he died alone. Access Living, which is a special interest group. They pushed this bill, by the way, which usually happens. Special interest group, just fill in the blank. They push this. It's not really the legislators who do it. The special interest groups quite literally sometimes are on the floor whispering in their legislators' ears, in your legislators' ears, so they don't really have an original thought in their brains, these state legislators. But this was pushed by Access Living, and like I said, lung cancer. And I don't know if he have proper care, end of life care, whatever it was. I don't know. This happened years ago, which is kind of shocking to me. I think he died like in 2015. The Associated Press did an article on it. And I don't know why it's like 10 years later we're doing like a bill like this, but this is just virtue signaling. And I want to be clear. They're naming a bill after a convicted murderer. Yes, I believe in dignity of people. Yes, I even believe in dignity for the incarcerated. And I believe that the DOC should be collecting data and providing hospice care for even the murderers. Yes. However, it's a slap in the face to victims in this state to be naming legislation after convicted felons, murderers. Okay, this where's the voice for Kevin Trimble? Where is his memorial? Kevin Trimble was a 20-year-old who was thrown down an elevator shaft and died. His name isn't on the law. Where's his name? McClure said it best. This isn't this is just political tone deafness. Like, this is insensitive, very insensitive, insensitivity at the highest level, folks. And this is just, it's more than just one bill. Okay. This is about the values of this state. We're watching government that would rather elevate criminals than honor the memory of victims. It's about the values of this. What message does this send? If you die in uniform overseas, oh, well, I don't really care. We're not going to name anything after you. But if you die in prison after committing a heinous crime of natural causes, like, lung cancer, considered a natural cause, you get a legislative legacy. This is bogus. To say that this is all about data collection, and this was the line from the sponsor, Adrian Johnson, they're just gathering info and you got nothing to worry about. Really, the symbolism is, it has meaning because symbols matter, names matter. The name of this bill matters. Eddie Thomas. We should never uplift a name of somebody who committed such a heinous crime and killed somebody. Okay, I'm not saying that Eddie Thomas doesn't deserve compassionate care in prison. I mean, that's subjective, but we need to take a stand and have a respectable civil society. You can't have a respectable civil society if we uplift people who kill people. Why weren't Kevin Trimble's parents consulted? Why weren't they given a chance to testify and come before the legislature and talk about how this law shouldn't be named after Eddie Thomas? He's right. This family should have had a chance to come speak about this. It would have loved to hear from the family. The left talks a big game about restorative justice, but apparently that doesn't include listening to the victims, okay? Because there's no justice for victims in the left eyes. That's not a thing, okay? There's only compassion for criminals. Now listen, the radical left, they're going to say, you're against prisoners and being compassionate for that's totally nonsense. I'm not compassionate towards criminals, okay? But we're glorifying murderers and palliative care, hospice care. Yes, pass the bill. Okay, if the DOC isn't doing it, really, I don't think you need to pass the bill. I think that Governor J.B. Pritzker needs to can the DEI hire who's in charge of the DOC, and that might actually fix the damn issue we've got. But the Illinois Inmate Dignity Act, there you go. I mean, that's pretty neutral. That's pretty nonpartisan. Like, okay, if you want to pass your dumb virtue signaling legislation that's really not going to fix anything, put a name that's not so controversial. But they're looking to start a fight, and that's what the left does. They always look to start a fight. It's time conservatives and common sense citizens start pushing back against these bad policies, against the bad symbols and bad messaging and the insane obsession that the left has with turning criminals into martyrs. Senator McClure was right to take a stand. Call Governor J.B. Pritzker, email your legislators, tell Governor J.B. Pritzker not to sign this bill with that name on it, Eddie Thomas. And for heaven's sake, demand that your state stop elevating the worst people of society, okay, and ignoring the best people of society. I'm not saying that the guy who was the victim of the crime was the best. He might have been another gang member, but still, I mean, what the hell are we doing? All right, I want to get to Donald Trump and common sense illegal immigration reform coming to LA. where Democrats do what Democrats do, and they opened up the borders. And a bunch of foreign nationals came in and they started lighting things on fire, waving flags from foreign countries. That's what the left does. And I shouldn't say that there weren't American flags. There were American flags. They were there too, but they were set on fire. Okay, so here's the way things stand as of this morning. The LA police chief has come out and they said that they're overwhelmed by these invading forces. I'll call them what they are. They're invading forces. They're foreign nationals waving flags, and this is an insurrection. And I think that Donald Trump needs to invoke the Insurrection Act. Governor Gavin Newsom and Mayor Karen Bass, two of California's leaders, they don't want to do anything. They claim nothing needs to be done. Let's take a listen. Here we go.
Happen, and then the National Guard was federalized, so they're working for the U.S. Army, not for the California State National Guard.
Do we need them?
Do we need them? Well, looking at it tonight, this thing has gotten out of control. I think before I could answer that, I'd have to know more about what their capabilities are, what their role is intended to be able to make that determination. But we have great cops in Southern California here that work together all the time. So we have tremendous capability here. To say that we would go to that right away, I'd say we wouldn't have been there yet. Looking at the violence tonight, I think we got to make a reassessment.
Laurel, how has your department interacted with the National Guard, if at all, since they've been here?
I'd say very little, other than we had a conference call this afternoon. There aren't a whole lot of soldiers in place at this time. They're still incoming. Happened, and then the National Guard was federalized.
Okay, so 2025 Los Angeles looks a lot like 2020 Minneapolis. Okay, so during the 2020 BLM riots, leftists do what leftists do. They burn cities down. They set cop cars on fire. They fly flags of foreign nations. President Donald Trump, I really think that he has to invoke this. I want him to invoke the Insurrection Act. Basically, what this does, it says, sorry, California, sorry, Governor Gavin Newsom, you guys don't get to have a say. So there is a law that kind of prohibits the federal government from coming in and bringing the National Guard in and the military. It kind of prohibits them from doing that. Needs to invoke the Insurrection Act. 10 seconds. This is a 10-second clip, and it's just visual. So join me on the YouTube, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Subscribe to the channel. This is a 10-second clip that really summarizes everything that's going on in LA. Take a look. For those of you on audio, fire just everywhere, masked militants everywhere, waving the Mexican flag. Yesterday, I talked about the Normal West graduate from Normal, Illinois. She got up there, started shaking out her Mexican flag. She was called up to receive her diploma, and really that's contributing to this whole thing, the indoctrination that's been going on in our school. We're creating activists, not the future leaders of America, but rather activists who hate America. I wouldn't even call them activists. I'd call them little terrorists, okay? And President Donald Trump, this is a banger of a quote, I'll tell you this right now. He responded to the chaos, and he promised that if officials stand in the way of law and order, what he's going to do is charge them. They're going to face charges. He's reminding everyone that times have changed, okay, and he's not going to let this chaos continue the same way that the people who controlled Joe Biden did. Okay, they just let chaos go crazy, and his auto pen did, right? Now, I'm going to fact check myself. There's no evidence that the auto pen was used to sign things. Auto pen, it's like an app where you can, copy somebody's signature. And there's no evidence that Joe Biden, the auto pen, signed things without Joe Biden's knowledge. According to the people who are at best gullible enough to believe everything that the Democrats tell them, or at worst willing to repeat every single lie that the Democrats tell them. So they'll say that the auto pen thing is total bunk, but is it? So here's President Donald Trump. He dropped a banger of a quote here. Let's take a listen.
That Insurrection Act, you still plan to send troops?
Well, we're going to have troops everywhere. We're not going to let this happen to our country. We're not going to let our country be torn apart like it was under Biden and his auto pen.
Even if you're not planning to invoke that insurrection.
In his auto pen, President Joe Biden in his auto pen. The banger of a quote right there. So she asked him about the Insurrection Act. He kind of sort of dodged the question. I think that he definitely should invoke the Insurrection Act because I don't know about you. This is definitely giving me insurrection vibes more so than the guy with the silly hat at January 6th in the Capitol. But there's another one that I want to get here. This is another quick one-liner that Donald Trump had. And he destroys the left and the leftist media. And he does it in such a very low-key kind of way. Here, take
When they spit at people, they spit. That's their new thing. They spit, and worse, you know what they throw at them, right? And when that happens, I have a little statement. They say, they spit, we hit. And I told them, nobody's going to spit on our police officers. Nobody's going to spit on our military, which they do as a common thing. They get up to them this far away, and then they start spitting in their face. That happens, they get hit very hard. We're going to be watching.
They spit, we hit. So that's President Donald Trump. He should invoke the Insurrection Act just to kind of cover his butt. I would say, I think that they've already sent it. I know they've already sent in the military, but there is something, and Governor Gavin Newsom is out there screaming states' rights, which I find absolutely hilarious. He's the most authoritarian governor outside of Governor J.B. Pritzker that there is. But he's out there screaming states' rights in order to cover Donald Trump's, for Donald to cover his own ass. I would say invoke the Insurrection Act. He's got plenty of evidence that this is an insurrection. These are foreign nationals waving a foreign flag, and they're trying to take over the country. You take over LA, what city's next? Right now it's LA, but this could inspire, and it already has, riots all over the country and in all over our major cities. So Governor Gavin Newsom, he added fuel to the fire here. And I can't wait for Tom Homan to get out there and be activated. Tom Homan, I want him to cuff Governor Gavin Newsom. I want to see this happen. It hasn't happened yet. Emphasis on the yet. Governor Gavin Newsom added fuel to the fire, and he was talking about how he's daring President Donald Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, to come arrest him amid this violent anti-ICE riot that's going on in LA. Now, please join me in a prayer. Lord, please have this happen, because that would make for incredible content during tomorrow's Conservative Cat Show. If Tom Homan actually cuffed Gavin Newsom and took him up on his offer to arrest him, that would be completely amazing. All right, I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to the Conservative Cat Show. We're going to be right back. And coming up, I do want to talk a little bit about the NAACP. There was a leader of the NAACP who said something absolutely ridiculous. You won't want to miss it right here on Conservative Cat.
Check your blind spots. Men love to call things out. Weakness, hypocrisy, failure. We're wired to spot threats and take action. But Jesus didn't say, never judge. He said, judge not, that you be not judged. Why? Because judgment without humility is a trap. It turns you into a sniper with a log jammed in your eye. Matthew 7 hits hard. Jesus calls out a man who sees a speck in his brother's eye, but ignores the plank in his own. He's not saying, don't correct. He's saying, clean your lens first. Self-examination before confrontation. It takes guts to get real with your own sin, to admit you've gone soft, to face your pride, lust, laziness, or bitterness head on. But that's what real men do. They sharpen themselves before they sharpen others. Jesus didn't just want behavior police. He wanted heart warriors, men who get the plank out, then humbly help a brother see clearly. Men who don't just flex spiritual authority, but walk with spiritual maturity. In verse 6, it's about discernment. Don't toss holy things to pigs. Don't waste truth on ears that mock it. Know when to speak. Know when to walk away. Before you blast through your next workout, check your form. Same with life. Patriot Pump fuels clean, focused energy, but you've still got to show up. Power with purpose. Clarity with strength. That's how you train. That's how you lead.
Welcome to Conservative Cat Clips, where we deal with the truth, not talking points. I'm your host, Kat, and today we're putting a spotlight on something the abortion industry wants to keep you in the dark about: abortion pills. What are they? How do they work? And how are they hurting women? Let's talk about the facts. Over 54% of abortions in America are now done using chemical abortion pills. That number is climbing fast. Why? Because it's easier, it's cheaper, and it's quieter. But here's what they won't tell you. Abortion pills come with a serious risk. The process is two drugs: mifepristone, which actually ends the pregnancy, and misoprostol, which forces the body to expel the baby. Sounds simple, right? It's not. According to the FDA, 4,200 serious adverse events have been reported, including 28 deaths since 2000, the year 2000. And those are just the official numbers. In 2021, there was a peer-reviewed study that found that ER visits after chemical abortions increased by over 500% between 2002 and 2015. And here's the kicker. Many of these cases are coded as miscarriages, and they're coded as miscarriages because women don't, or they can't, tell the hospital what actually happened and that they actually took these pills. That means the real damage, probably much worse, so way more than 4,200 adverse events since 2000. Now brace yourself. The Biden administration made it to where these pills were accessible by the mail with no person exam, no ultrasound, and no guarantee that the pregnancy had to be an ectopic pregnancy. So, I mean, you could be taking these in your 6 months, 7 months, 8 months along. And it's not, this could be deadly if you take it when it's not an ectopic pregnancy. Women are being told to take these powerful drugs and there's zero medical supervision. That's not healthcare. It's called negligence. It's medical negligence. And we're seeing heartbreaking stories about all these women who are bleeding alone in dorm rooms, bathrooms, parking lots, or even in their own cars in the parking lot. Clinics like Planned Parenthood calls this empowerment and empowering, but tell me how it's empowering to hand a teenager a handful of pills and say, good luck. The emotional fallout is just as real, by the way. There's a physical risk, but there's an emotional risk as well. Women reported feeling abandoned, traumatized, and even haunted by what they've done, especially when they see the tiny, tiny body of their baby passing and passing that. It's traumatizing, and nobody tells them that they're going to see the tiny baby in the pamphlet. So here's the truth, the plain and simple truth. Abortion pills are not safe. They're not kind, and they're not empowering. They actually hurt women, and they silence their pain by taking these chemical abortion pills, and they protect an industry by keeping the abortion in the dark. And it doesn't do anything to protect the individual at all. I'm Kat, and this has been Conservative Clips, Cat Clips, reminding you that real healthcare, it doesn't kill people, and real healthcare means empowering women and supporting women, not selling them lies in a bottle. Stay alert, stay bold, and always choose light. This has been Conservative Cat Clips. Good morning. Hey, welcome back to Conservative Cat, the show where we sink our claws into the truth. Rather than focusing on the students of Ohio, the education chair of the Cleveland, Ohio NAACP has decided a better use of her time is to create fake awards for school board members who actively oppose the Trump administration and his executive orders, Trump's executive orders. Let's take a listen to this. It's a Zoom call, and this is the education chair of the Cleveland, Ohio branch of the NAACP. Take a listen.
And we have some school board members all over the country, but especially in Ohio, we have school board members who understand what their job is, and that's to put students first. And so some school board members in Ohio have defied that, what I call an immoral suggestion from the president to sign anti-DEI, anti-diversity, equity, and inclusion directives. And so at our Teach Truth Day of Action, we're calling it a Finding Joy teach-in. We are going to be giving what we call Guardians of Justice Awards to school board members who stood up and said, no, we're not signing that, who believe that their students are the most important thing and that they are going to look out for their students because that's their job. And so I'm wearing the pin now. I hope you can see it. It's a Guardian of Justice Award. We're going to be giving awards to school board members along with a certificate. So far, we have 3 districts that are going to be actually showing up, including Cincinnati, Shaker Heights School District, and the Cleveland Heights University Heights District. They are going to come to our event on June 7th. And we're going to hold on to the awards. And as we continue to hear from more school board members, we will mail them their Guardian of Justice Awards and their certificates. We want to encourage people. Don't be intimidated. Don't be afraid, okay? We have a democracy to protect, and it's our job to do that. So I want to thank you for this opportunity.
Oh, boy. Well, to claim our education system has been hijacked by radical leftists, that is an understatement, according to Ohio News during a Tuesday Teach the Truth of Action briefing. So that's what this was. It was a little Zoom call. The education chair of the Cleveland, Ohio NAACP said that the group is honoring school board members who defy the Trump administration. Oh, they break federal law. Oh, they're not in compliance with the executive orders passed by the federal government, and that is worthy of a cute little pin that they wear. The Zen Education Project hosted the Day of Action event. So this is called the Day of Action event. It was a little online briefing thing, and the group touted that the briefing was intended to, quote, draw attention to the chilling effects the restrictive laws introduced or passed that restrict, ban, or censor what educators can teach and what their students can learn about history, LGBTQ rights, race, gender, among other things. No, calling that chilling is absolutely pathetic. Okay, it's a pathetic attempt to make it seem like what she's talking about actually matters. It clearly doesn't. The kids need to learn how to read, write, and do math. They don't need to learn how to, and I'm going to be frank with you, give each other oral sex, gay oral sex. Okay. I've seen some of these books. The Hayworth teacher, whatever her name was, Sarah Boner, whatever it was, she had gay books. This book is gay, and all kinds of other books that promoted this kind of stuff. How to have oral sex, gay oral sex. The kids don't need to be knowing, they don't need to know any of that. This shows that her main goal here is to indoctrinate children. The education chair of the NAACP there in Cleveland, Ohio, that is the goal. It's to indoctrinate students with these topics. And it's very pathetic that she thinks that this is something that needs to be focused on. We need to focus on useful things like math and English, right? Let's actually do something for the students and provide education, not indoctrination. And the thing of it is, they'll never do that because math is racist. 2 + 2 = 5, and there's no binary. We don't live in a binary. Stop doesn't mean stop. Go doesn't mean go. Boy doesn't mean boy. Girl doesn't mean girl. They live in this world where words don't have meaning, and they live in a fantasy land. Meryl Johnson, that's her name, the NAACP Cleveland Branch's Education Committee. She's the branch, or she's the chair of that committee. She said, The group is going to be giving awards to school board members who defy President Donald Trump's executive orders, eliminating DEI policies. Okay. So, especially in Ohio, we have school board members who understand that their job is to put the students first. That's not putting students first. Okay. And shame on her. She had this Martin Luther King Jr. is picture in the back. Shame on her. She was in this video. She was talking about this. The content of your character, not the color of your skin. That was a staple of Martin Luther King Jr., and she just spit all over that sentiment. Okay, so it's immoral. DEI is immoral. It divides people. The insignificant birth rate of your skin color doesn't mean anything. Okay, it doesn't. There's something that you have no control over, and that's the color of your skin. And they are trying to implement things like so DEI policies could look like something a black only field trip. Okay, black only field trip. Well, that's discriminatory. Okay, these students, they've got no control over their skin color, and you can't be affording AP classes for just black students. Okay, that's not something that we should be condoning here in the United States of America, because guess what? It's discriminatory and it's against federal law, the Civil Rights Act. Okay, and like I said, she was in front of this MLK Jr. poster, and she's pushing these ideas, and he would have never supported these types of ideas, by the way. He was all about the belief of you judge somebody based on their character, not on the color of their skin. I don't know if she forgot his sole mission or what the hell she's talking about, but she says this quote, and at our Teach Truth Day of Action, we're going to be giving what we call Guardians of Justice Awards to school board members who stand up and say, no, we're not signing that. And they believe that their students are the most important thing. Clearly they don't. Okay, they think that the activism is the most important thing, and the indoctrination and the DEI policies are the most important thing. If they actually thought that the most important thing was the students, they'd teach them something of use, which is math, reading, maybe teach them how to balance checkbook, maybe teach them how to write in cursive, things that they actually have to learn in order to make it out here in the world, right? And honestly, I think that this is like grounds for termination. If a school board member, or grounds for teachers, if they're not following executive orders, federal law, that's grounds for termination. Like, I would even argue it's grounds for being arrested if you are. And really, let's talk about this. The indoctrination, the kids' porn books and things. Sarah Bonner of Hayworth, Illinois, she was ultimately terminated because she had this documentary featured on her Reading Monday's assignment. Okay, this is real. She had a movie called Money Shot. Now, I'm not going to describe what Money Shot is. You can type it in your search bar or go type it into Google and read all about what Money Shot means. But she had a documentary on for grade school kids, like 5th grade, 6th grade, I think it was, for them to go watch that and do an assignment based off of that documentary. Like, that's wild. Okay. And let's call this what it is. It's grooming children. Okay. And I think that's ground for arrest. I mean, I really do think that that's grounds for arrest. I mean, we've gone a long way from just activism, indoctrination. I think we're at a point where you're breaking the Civil Rights Act, you're grooming children, you're sexualizing children. I think you need to be arrested. So her clear goal is not to prioritize kids, but rather to prioritize kids' skin color and their sexuality. And that's something that's never going to be morally correct. I do want to get to this. The city of Los Angeles, they are using taxpayer money to defend themselves in this lawsuit, a lawsuit accusing them of laundering taxpayer funds to fix the homelessness crisis, one that's actually gotten significantly worse despite all the money they're throwing at it. So we're going to get to that really quick. Something that happened here locally in my town. It's Pride Month, June. It's my least favorite month. Okay. In my town, I live in Lincoln. It's a very red county, one of the reddest, by the way, in the state, outside of like downstate Illinois. Logan County. I live in Lincoln. The mayor here, and I hate that I have this intuition. I don't know what it is. Call it journalistic suspicion, but I did ultimately fill in the bubble next to this guy's name when I voted for him because I pulled a Republican ballot in our municipal elections. He ran as mayor, but there's something off when you see his signs next to Kamala Harris signs, okay, in yards. And I was like, yeah, I don't know if he's really a Republican. I'll fill in the bubble. My husband did not. He abstained. He was like, yeah, I don't trust him. I really didn't like what he had to say. We went to a Republican Party dinner, and he gave like a crappy speech. It wasn't all that great. And the mayor of Lincoln, he runs as a Republican. Okay. And I want to be very clear about something. In Illinois, it's very hard to decipher whether somebody's a Republican or not. I mean, our Republicans are like Southern Democrats, okay, up here in Illinois. And this guy makes me think that Illinois might be a lost cause. He runs as a Republican, and there was something called the Logan County Pride Fest. Okay. And apparently this was the 5th annual one. They closed down all the downtown streets and whatever. I mean, like I said, your county, your city officials at a local level, they've got a ton of control. We talked about how the Safe Tea Act, they could claim themselves as a sanctuary city and say that we're not going to follow it. They might wind up getting sued by the state, but I say, hell, go for it. Give it a try. There is a lot. Our nation was designed to where local control is given preference. Okay, so local control is given preference over federal and state control even. So your local government elected officials have a lot of control. Now, clearly they closed down the streets. Obviously, they had to get approval for that. They probably did this because they were like, we don't want to get sued and we have to, afford them the same privileges as everybody else, which you don't have to do that because most likely if a straight pride festival were to happen or straight pride people a coalition were to approach you and ask you to shut down the streets, you'd probably say no because it'd be called bigoted or you'd be afraid of the leftist, the unhinged leftists and that they'd come after you. There's no straight pride parades and I don't understand why not. Oh, I do understand because pride is a sin. Right? It was the original sin, I would even say, before Adam and Eve was pride that led Adam to take the apple. Eve and Adam to take the apple, but it also Lucifer fell. He was a fallen angel, and he was the lead worshiper, the angel that would go around the throne of God and worship God. And he thought he was better than God, and it was all about pride. It was all about pride, and that's why Lucifer fell, which ultimately led to the original sin. I would say that the original would be the angel that had fallen. Lucifer ultimately became Satan, right? So, pride. You don't see straight pride because it is sin, pride, in the first place, but the Logan County Pride, they wanted to set up this little festival. And right there, smack dab in the middle of this picture, it was wild for me to see. And I realized, I was like, man, is Illinois a lost cause? Like, are all Republicans rhinos? And here's why I'd call them a rhino in name only, or a Republican in name only, is because the Illinois Republican platform is very clear about traditional family values. Okay, so I'm just going to straight up read from the Illinois Republican platform. And they have this published publicly. And in a two-party system, it's very crucial that you have candidates who abide by the party platform, because you have people like me who vote Republican, and you have people like me who donate to Republican parties, local Republican parties, and those local Republican parties will throw their money behind a Republican candidate, and I give my money to the local Republican Party, and they're supposed to support candidates that are Republican. That is the assumption that we're all operating off of. So it's very important that if you're running as a Republican, you're actually a Republican. The Logan County, I think it was Republican Committee, Central Committee, they gave him like over $8,000. This guy, Tracy Welch, is the mayor of Lincoln. And I'm just going to read up straight up from the Republican platform. This is the official platform of the Illinois Republican Party. It says here, while not universally achievable, the ideal environment for children is within a two-parent family based on the principle of marriage between one man and one woman. The Republican Party endorses a constitutional amendment protecting our Defense of Marriage Act and enshrining in constitutional law marriage as it is defined in our Defense of Marriage Act. Our laws should strongly support and celebrate the loving commitment between a man and a woman and make each other in marriage. Make it to each other in marriage, the loving commitment. Okay. Our laws should strongly support and celebrate a loving married couple bringing new life into the world and rearing children in a secure and nurturing environment from conception to adulthood. This is pretty damn clear. Family, the family is society's central building block. Thus, efforts to strengthen family life are efforts to improve life for everyone. So, I mean, embracing the traditional family, this is a tenet of the Republican Party. This is the official platform of the Republican Party. If you have Republicans who are, he was pictured there and he did a ribbon cutting for the Logan County Pride Coalition's festival that was done in downtown Lincoln. If you have Republicans like that, we do not have a two-party system anymore. We have a uniparty, and that's not fair. So I always recommend people donate to the candidate, really understand who your candidate is, and to donate to candidates directly, because you could wind up in a situation where you donate to a local Republican Party. They donate, I mean, for a mayoral race of a town of this size, near $9,000, that's a pretty good chunk of money. Okay. And you donate to the Republican Party, thinking under the assumption, hey, I'm donating to the Republican Party. They should be donating to candidates who abide by the tenets of our party, right? Shame on you for, I guess, assuming that. And that's the problem, like, with Illinois. I mean, if I could sum it up in just one instance, we need to ensure there are legitimate Republicans who are abiding by, and this is lying in order to get money, because in this town, you probably wouldn't win as a Democrat. That's why he's running as a Republican. Let's be real. Let's call a spade a spade. That's probably why he's running as a Republican, because in this town, you're not going to win as a Democrat. I told you it's a pretty deep red county. And they're being deceptive. And they're lying to the public in order to get this money. Okay, these rhinos, in order to get this money from the Republican Party and to win their races in their communities, because they know that they wouldn't be able to run as Democrats and win. So it's very deceptive, and it's all built off lies. And we need to call this out. And I'm just going to call it out. I really would expect a Democrat to do this at a Logan County Pride, a Pride Festival. I'd expect a Democrat to do this, yes. But we need to understand that there is an official platform when you run as a Republican, and lying to the voters is not cool. All right, let's get to the city of Los Angeles using taxpayer funds. I got about 5 minutes left. They're using taxpayer funds to defend itself in this lawsuit. And it's kind of ironic because the lawsuit itself is accusing the city of Los Angeles of using taxpayer funds to fix the homeless crisis, but actually they're laundering taxpayer funds to fix the homeless crisis. And it's actually only gotten worse the more money they actually throw at this thing. So I'm going to play this clip. We're going to break it down. This girl, she talks about this. Los Angeles Democrats are using the taxpayer money to hire an 11-person law firm to cover up the missing homeless money. Okay, the money that they're supposed to be grabbing from the taxpayers to address homelessness. Let's take a listen.
LA is broke, and our city leaders, Karen Bass, City Council, have told us to expect a huge reduction in our basic city services, such as street repairs, the fire department, our public safety. But what they did find money for was a fancy 11-person law firm to defend the city against the wrongdoings and corruption that the city and county have done with $2.3 billion worth of taxpayer money, our money that has vanished in shady homeless contracts. So if we get this right, they are using our taxpayer dollars to cover up and defend what they did and the wrongdoings and corruption they did with our taxpayer dollars. How does this make any sense? It seems like this money could have been better put use to our roads and making sure that Angelenos are safe.
Okay, so the city of Los Angeles, they've poured billions and billions of taxpayer dollars into tackling homelessness, but recent investigations show that there could be widespread corruption here where they're taking these billions of dollars, they're unaccounted for, and the city is using these now they're using more taxpayer dollars to defend themselves against these corruption allegations. So are you surprised by any of this? I'm definitely not. According to the West Side Current, the evidentiary hearing, which began Tuesday, stems from a lawsuit filed by the LA Alliance for Human Rights, an association of downtown businesses and residents. The group alleges that the city and the county have failed to deliver commitments made in the 2022 settlement to address the region's homelessness crisis. They've got a crisis there. The U.S. District Judge David Carter has adopted a traditional judicial role, presiding over the evidence and argument to determine if the city has met its obligations. Okay, so the city, they've spent billions of dollars to fix this problem. How many more billions do you think it's going to take to finally house the unhoused? Because clearly this issue is it's not about a lack of housing. I want to be very clear about this. This definitely has something to do with severe mental illness, substance abuse, serious substance abuse, but it also has to do with this, where we have billions of dollars going to these nonprofit organizations, which are supposed to tackle homelessness, and then in the end, a lot of these executive directors are getting $250,000 salaries, and homelessness is not being eradicated. Tuesday's session featured a critical testimony, including that of a LA Alliance Executive Director, Paul Webster, who outlined the plaintiff's concerns. Representative of Alvarez and Marshall Public Sector Services, A&M, this is the fancy law firm, responsible for a damning 82-page audit, this is the law firm that did the audit. Okay, so there was a firm that did an audit that led to this court, or to this to go to court, this lawsuit. And it was an 82-page audit of the city's homelessness programs. They also testified, these representatives of that firm. They hired a fancy firm to kind of combat these allegations with taxpayer dollars. But they found widespread failures in financial management, transparency, and program effectiveness between 2020 and 2024, June 2020 to June of 2024. A&M audit, they found approximately $2.3 billion in funding, but concluded much of that was not properly accounted for. So taxpayers, they give $2.3 billion. Where is it? They can't find it. So auditors reported inconsistent financial practices, unverified payments to service providers, and overlapping funding streams, and obscured actual spending. So nearly like all of these programs that they're doing, it's all nonprofit organizations, and people are getting rich off of taxpayer dollars. This is what happens. They get $250,000 of salaries, these people, and the city, it's very clear that they can clean up their homelessness issue. You guys remember when Governor Gavin Newsom came out there and was talking about China, and the Chinese dictator came to town and they cleaned up the streets for the Chinese dictator. And Governor Gavin Newsom admitted that they cleaned up the streets for the Chinese dictator because he was the Chinese dictator and they did it for him. Yeah, so they can clean up the streets. Really what it is, it's implementing solicitation laws, things like that, trespassing laws, open air drug deals, making sure that you crack down on that stuff. And then that's a deterrent. And making sure the mentally ill get to the places that they need to go. I say open up the insane asylums again, right? Only progressives can take a once great city and turn it into something that feels straight out of a third world, that's LA. So while the city of Los Angeles has hired this fancy law firm to cover up wherever this cash went, don't expect anything more than just more of the same from these people. They're going to keep doing this. They're going to keep covering their butts. Officials throughout the state have proven that their priorities are not with the Angelonians. No. They are certainly not with the unhoused and the drug addiction population, because it's criminal. It's really not compassionate to keep this going on. To have the open air drug deals, to have the homelessness crisis continue. And they've proven that they can combat this, because the Chinese dictator came into town and they threw him a big old party and cleaned up the streets. So they can combat the homelessness crisis. They're just choosing not to. And a lot of people are getting $250,000 salaries to just sit on their butts and not eradicate homelessness. All right. Well, that's today's show. I appreciate you being here. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Tomorrow morning, we're going to be back. It's a daily show, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Central Time. It really helps me out if you subscribe, hit the notification bell, find me on Rumble, and follow the program. Bye-bye. Love you so much. We'll see you again tomorrow.